What if the narcissist never truly left you? What if you still speak in their voice, doubt with their mind, and shrink in their shadow? You thought you were healing, but something still haunts you. Subtle, invisible, and deeply familiar. The real prison wasn't built outside you. It was carved into your psyche. And now it's time to break it open. This is the part no one tells you about. The part that changes everything. They didn't just lie to you. They made you lie to yourself. They didn't just gaslight you. They handed you the match and convinced you to light your own sanity on fire. Most people think narcissistic abuse ends when the relationship ends. But it doesn't. Because the worst part of a narcissist isn't what they say or do. It's what they awaken inside you. A silent war. A fracture so deep it starts to feel like your personality. They don't just seduce your heart. They hijack your archetypes. They lure your inner child with promises of unconditional love, then punish her for needing it. They awaken your inner lover, full of light, eroticism, emotional hunger, and then teach her that her very nature is too much. They summon your inner protector, then gaslight him into believing he's dangerous. When he defends you, they fracture you from within, and when they walk away, they leave you behind with a mirror that no longer reflects who you are, only what they wanted you to become. You used to have fire in your voice. Now your words tremble like broken glass. You used to laugh from the belly, wild, untamed, divine. Now your joy is measured, polite, almost apologetic. They didn't take your freedom. They taught you how to build the cage yourself, and worse, to decorate it. Now you walk through life with a carefully constructed mask. I'm fine. It wasn't that bad. I've moved on. But somewhere deeper, in the silence between your thoughts, a whisper persists. Something is wrong with me. That whisper isn't yours. It was planted, carefully, strategically, by someone who needed you small in order to feel big. This is the hidden legacy of narcissistic abuse. Not just trauma, but transformation into a version of you that doesn't know how to say no. That doesn't know how to scream. That doesn't know how to want without shame. In Jungian language, this is psychic fragmentation. Your identity, once whole, now lives in pieces. You don't know who you are anymore, because you've outsourced your sense of worth to someone who weaponized it. You see, narcissists don't just hurt your feelings. They distort your symbols. Love becomes control. Attention becomes manipulation. Apology becomes seduction. Silence becomes punishment. And slowly, without realizing it, your soul forgets its original language. This is what makes healing so confusing. Because you're not just recovering from memories. You're unlearning an entire symbolic system that was designed to keep you obedient, apologetic, and small. There's a part of you, ancient, defiant, untamed, that never fully submitted. She watched everything. She saw the patterns. She remembered the first lie. She recognized the moments when your intuition screamed and you chose peace over truth. She's not mad at you, but she's waiting. Not for revenge, for rebirth. And here's the terrifying truth. You can't heal from narcissistic abuse by returning to who you were before, because that version of you allowed it. You have to become someone else entirely. Someone the narcissist would never dare to approach again. Not hardened, but whole. Not armored, but sovereign. Not angry, but awake. In the myth, Echo was cursed to only repeat the words of others. She could no longer speak her own truth. Narcissus fell in love with his reflection, unable to love anything beyond himself. But the real tragedy, Echo didn't die. She faded, and that's what narcissistic abuse does. It doesn't always kill your body or your mind. It kills your voice. It leaves you speaking someone else's script, reacting to someone else's emotions, living someone else's life, until one day you wake up in a quiet room. No more chaos, no more fights, no more seduction, just silence. And you realize you don't know what your voice sounds like anymore. But that silence, it's sacred, because it's not just the absence of them. It's the beginning of you. There are 3 wounds. They don't bleed. They don't leave scars. But they distort everything. They shape how you speak, who you trust, what you tolerate, and most tragically, what you believe you deserve. These wounds don't show up on X-rays. They show up in silence, in that split second where you feel an impulse to speak your truth and choose not to. They show up when someone loves you, and you wonder what they want. They show up in the way you over-explain, under-ask, and micromanage your own feelings, so you never become too much. And the worst part, you think it's you. You think it's just how you are. But it's not. It's what you learned in the war zone of a narcissistic bond. You question everything, not out of curiosity, sure. Out of fear. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm the problem? What if I'm overreacting? So you shrink, you censor, you edit your needs so they don't inconvenience others. But this isn't humility. It's a trauma response, a programmed instinct born from being told, over and over, that your perception can't be trusted, that your feelings are dramatic, that your needs are manipulative, that your boundaries are selfish. So, you begin to rely on external validation for internal truth. You hand over the keys to your own mind and call it love. You pride yourself on not needing anyone. You do it all. You hold it all. You endure it all. But deep down, you're exhausted because somewhere in your past, someone taught you that needing love meant being controlled. That vulnerability invited punishment. That dependence was weakness. So now, every time you feel the natural hunger for emotional closeness, you suppress it. You work instead. You help others. You clean the house. You scroll, because silence feels safer than intimacy. And strength? It's just your mask. The truth is, you're strong because you had no other choice. But what you really want is to be held, understood, chosen, without performing for it. You love deeply. You give endlessly. You forgive repeatedly. But beneath the surface, there's a tragic loyalty. A belief that your worth is measured by how much pain you're willing to carry for others. You don't set boundaries. You absorb. You don't confront. You contort. You don't say stop. You say I understand. Because somewhere in your story, you learned that love is earned through suffering. That if someone hurts you, it's because they're hurting. and it's your job to fix it, so you become the emotional sponge, the empath, the healer, the martyr. But here's the truth. Most victims of narcissists never hear. Real compassion never requires self-erasure. If you have to abandon yourself to love someone, that isn't love. It's spiritual abuse. Everyone talks about letting go after narcissistic abuse. Let go of the pain. Let go of the past. Let go of them. But that's not where healing starts. Healing begins with remembering. Remembering who you were before you started performing for love, before you edited your emotions for survival, before you believed that silence was safety. This is the path of individuation. Not becoming someone else, but reclaiming every part of you that had to go silent just to survive. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The narcissist was not fate. They were a mirror, a brutal one. But mirrors, even broken ones, reveal what's hidden. And now you've seen it. There is a moment in every hero's journey, a dark forest, a fall, an exile, but exile is never the end. It's the beginning of transformation. You have been exiled from love, from trust, from self. But this pain, this emptiness, this confusion, it's not your prison. It's your passage. You are not a victim. You are a soul mid-transformation, undergoing psychic alchemy. You are not lost. You are being reborn. And the question is not, will I ever be the same? The question is, who am I becoming because of this? Because healing from narcissistic abuse isn't just recovery, it's revelation. And the next part of this journey, you haven't even touched the real power hidden in your shadow yet. Not all prisons have bars. Some are made of invisible agreements. You didn't just fall into the hands of a narcissist. You were bound to them by something deeper, something almost sacred in its secrecy. Carl Jung spoke often of the shadow, the hidden parts of ourselves that we deny, repress, or ignore. But here's what no one tells you. Every narcissistic bond is forged not just in trauma, but in shadow. You weren't just manipulated. You were mirrored. Your deepest unmet needs, your unhealed wounds, your secret longings, all reflected back to you. And without realizing it, you signed a contract. I will abandon myself if you promise not to abandon me. It's a silent vow, a psychic pact, a soul-level entanglement that says, I'll be small, quiet, pleasing, broken, as long as you stay. But that contract has a cost, because every time you dim your light to make someone else feel powerful, you betray your own soul. It's easy to believe you were the weak one, that they had the power, that you were the dependent one. But narcissists feed off reflection. They survive by being seen through others, especially those with empathy, depth, and light. You weren't weak. You were fuel. You saw them. You admired them. You gave them meaning, status, admiration, the illusion of selfhood. And in return, they gave you crumbs of connection, just enough to keep you doubting your hunger. But underneath all that, there's something darker. They chose you not because you were easy to manipulate, but because your light made them feel real. And the moment you start seeing through the illusion, they panic, Because without your reflection, they don't exist. That's not love. That's parasitism. There's a reason you stayed. It wasn't stupidity. It wasn't weakness. It was archetypal. In mythology, there's an ancient pattern. The wounded healer. This is the one who tries to heal others, hoping that in doing so, they will finally be healed themselves. Sound familiar? You saw their pain. You sensed their inner child. You believed that your love, your understanding, your loyalty could save them. And here's the twist. That belief came from your own wound, the part of you that was never saved. You didn't just want to heal them. You wanted to redeem the part of yourself that was once left behind. But archetypes have a lesson. The wounded healer must eventually learn. You cannot save others by bleeding for them. Because healing doesn't happen through sacrifice. It happens through sovereignty. What happens when you spend years shape-shifting for survival? You fragment. You become many versions of yourself. The compliant child who keeps the peace. The logical adult who explains away red flags. The romantic who dreams they'll change. The inner critic who whispers, maybe it's my fault. This is psychic fragmentation. When the self splits to cope with irreconcilable emotional truths. But the longer you stay in that split, the more distant you become from your own essence. You don't just forget who you are. You stop trusting that you even exist beneath the performance. You smile while your heart screams. You nod while your body says no. You stay while your soul begins to die. This is the true cost of narcissistic abuse. Not the broken relationships, not even the trauma, but the amnesia of self. Healing doesn't start with revenge. It doesn't start with exposure or explanation. It starts with this whisper. I'm not here to be chosen by them. I'm here to remember who I am without them. That sentence, it's a spell, a reversal of the shadow contract. It unhooks you from their gaze. It detaches you from the loop of proving your worth. It calls back every lost part of you, scattered across years of emotional servitude. This is where you begin the sacred work of psychological alchemy, turning the poison of manipulation into the gold of self-reclamation, turning the ashes of identity into the fire of transformation. Because the truth is, you were never broken. You were being initiated, and the person you're becoming, they're not just healed, they're whole, and they remember. Every ending births a new beginning. But only if you dare to rise from the ashes. You have been through the fire, burned by lies, shadows, and shattered trust. But inside you is a spark, a core of light untouched by their darkness. This spark is your true self, waiting patiently for you to reclaim it. Carl Jung taught that individuation is the journey to become whole. Beyond our masks and shadows, the narcissist tried to keep you fragmented, dependent, and lost. But your path is the opposite. To gather every lost piece, to integrate every shadow, to own every part of your soul, even the parts that scared you. The journey is not easy. It's a dance between light and dark, love and rage, surrender and fierce boundary. But every step forward is a step toward freedom. Freedom means learning to say no, not just to others, but to your own internalized voices of doubt. The narcissist's voice, once loud and omnipresent, fades as you build new walls, not walls of isolation, but walls of protection. You become the sovereign of your inner kingdom, deciding who enters and who stays out. You learn that your worth isn't tied to anyone else's reflection. Inside you lives the anima, if you're a man, or animus, if you're a woman, the inner opposite gender archetype representing the bridge to your unconscious. Narcissistic abuse distorts this inner relationship, creating distrust, fear, or disconnection. Healing means reconnecting with this internal counterpart to find balance, intuition, and authentic emotional flow. When this inner dialogue is healed, you no longer seek validation outside. You become your own source of love and power. Many walk this path, invisible warriors healing their shadows in silence. You're part of a hidden collective, a silent revolution of souls awakening from the nightmare of narcissistic entanglement. Your story, pain and healing ripple outward, touching others in ways unseen. You are the phoenix and the fire. You are the shadow and the light. You are the healer who was once wounded. This is not the end. It's the beginning of a new chapter, one where you stand in your truth, whole, sovereign, and free. Remember, the wound is the place where the light enters. Carl Jung, and now, the light is yours to claim.